Okay, so today, guys, we have section 3.1 and 3.4 to go over. Um, the calculations aren't too bad here. There's a little bit of thinking. It's kind of fun thinking. The word problems, there are a decent amount of them in 3.4. So just take your time. Try to kind of grapple with them a little bit, because that's how you get better at math. It's just by kind of struggling with it for a little bit. Probably the most complicated thing I always found with this stuff had to be radians. Just how people talk about radians. They talk about them as some magical unitless thing. Radians are just another way of talking about an angle's measure. We can measure an angle in degrees. We can also measure them in radians. Degrees are, I always like degrees, but they really are arbitrary. There's no reason to divide a circle into 360 pieces. Radians do make more sense mathematically, but for most people's purposes, there's no reason to use one over the other. We use them because it makes a lot of these calculations easier when we're not converting between degrees. And you'll see me do it. I'll write in radians when it's useful, and I'll treat it like a unit because it helps me to convert things. But then later, when I don't need it, I just don't write anything. So it really is a unitless measure. It's just a number that maps very easily to the real number line. And so we can do kind of hand-waving stuff with it like that. Don't worry too much about it. For our purposes, it's just another way of talking about angles. Everything we talked about in terms of degrees, we can talk about in terms of radians. If there's something that we're looking at in radians, you can always convert it back to degrees when we're talking about these trig functions in order to deal with it easier. Some of the formulas we use only work when we're dealing with radians, so a lot of these conversions are only going to work when you're dealing with radians. But anything involving our trig functions, I did just a couple of those, like find the sine of pi over 30 degrees. That's something you can just as easily do in degrees. So, and your calculator actually has a button. Most calculators do. Has a button that converts between degrees and radians. Let me see here. Where is this thing? Oh, there we go. Mine has this DRG button. I press the DRG, and that tells me, it lets me convert. Like right now it's set to work in degrees. That's the standard, but like I can convert it to use radians. And now when I do any of my calculations, I have to enter my angle in radians. Like pi over 6, sine of pi over 6. It would have to be in radians mode for that to work, and now it's in radians mode. Other stuff, we've got spring break coming up. Well, first let me back up. Thank you for those of you who told me about the Module 6 homework not being posted. I made it, and then never actually did the assign option, so it didn't show up in my math lab, which is okay. I mean, I didn't get around to making these videos until now anyway. But that's up, and I'll make the other stuff that I would normally do for spring break. I'm going to do that this week. I'd like to do that this week. That way you can work on that over the break. You can work on it a little bit early. That way you don't have to spend your break if you actually do get time off, which a lot of us don't. But that hopefully I'll post today or tomorrow as well. I think that's it. Overall, the test scores were very good. A few people still, for whatever reason, they're out of country or whatever, haven't taken it. But overall, our test scores I'm very happy with. So congratulations and keep up the good work.